Hey, good morning, everyone. This is Mark Torregrossa here. And sorry I can't be with you. My wife is dragging me, forcing me to go on vacation. And I screwed up my schedule. I thought I was going one day later on Thursday, but no, I'm supposed to be in the air right now and probably flying through about a 160-mile-an-hour jet stream and rocking and rolling in thunderstorms, too. But it'll all end with a Bloody Mary later this morning, probably. Um, I do think I can show you what could possibly happen, and it's pretty important that you know it because there's some significant changes in the weather going on. First off, let's get into this. This is where the El Nino is. El Nino is warmer than normal water in the Pacific. Here's South America. There you can see Mexico. Australia is over here. So this was what it looked like in December. This area of warm water is about 5 times the United States. So it's a pretty significant large area of warmth. Now, when we talk about El Nino, we got to talk about the regions and know how we're comparing one El Nino to another. So here are the regions that the Climate Prediction Center divides the El Nino up into. Here's South America again. Here's Australia. And here's a small region called Nino 1 and 2. Then this red region, Nino 3. Yellow region, Nino 4. And the important region for comparisons is this Nino 3.4 region. How does that look over the last year or so? That's what this is. This is the temperature anomaly, temperature deviation from normal. Above this line is warmer than normal. Below the line is colder than normal. And you can see for the last year or so, the temperatures have been above normal. This is that Nino region 3.4, the big region in the center of it. And you can see from March to April to May to June, July, August, September, October, November, temperatures were warming. And now it appears as though they have peaked, and the government says that they think that next month the temperatures will be cooler. And bear in mind, they rank these temperatures in 3-month increments. So it's always kind of lagging. And that's important for you as the farmer because, long story short, El Nino cooling off and rapidly ending and turning to a La Nina is a warmer and drier pattern for the Corn Belt, starting in the west and southwest part of the Corn Belt first in the season and then creeping toward us. And that's kind of the whole theme of this talk. But you can see that the El Nino is coming to an end. Now, El Nino and La Nina being the opposite when the temperatures cool more than normal, are kind of cyclical, but not so regular that we can tell you exactly when they'll happen and when they'll end and when the next one will come in. This is from 1950, and you can see all of the La Ninas, and here's an El Nino, and then here's a period of almost normal water for quite some time, several years, and then an El Nino, La Nina, El Nino, and so on. Here's a strong one, 83. Here's another strong one, 1989. Here's the strongest one, 1998, and that is now tied with the current El Nino. When we look at the strength, 1998's El Nino peaked at 2.3 degrees Celsius above normal. The current El Nino, 2.3 degrees Celsius above normal. It probably will not be ranked as the strongest El Nino ever because it's already starting to cool off. But here's something to notice. Right here. Look at how a lot of these strong El Ninos cool quickly and turn to La Nina. 88. We were in El Nino in 87 into January of 88, and by middle of summer of 88, already in a La Nina. You know what 88 was like. 98 into 2000. 95 was one. It was a El Nino quickly going into a La Nina. And look at 2010. El Nino going into La Nina and staying in La Nina during that dry time period in the 2011-2012 time period. So it's that quick change from El Nino to La Nina that you have to watch for in the coming summer for as far as winter goes. Now, all of the meteorological organizations in the world are trying to forecast El Nino. Why? In Japan, when El Nino shows up, devastating hurricanes. In the United States, when El Nino shows up, flooding in California, severe weather in the Gulf Coast, warmer and drier than normal winters in the upper Midwest into Michigan. So what you're seeing here are all of the computer model forecasts from all of these different places like NASA, the Weather Service, Japanese Meteorological Agency, Australia, Europe, United Kingdom, Meteorological France, all of them running these models of the 3.4 region of El Nino. And here is what they expect. This yellow line in here is kind of the consensus or the average of all the models. And we're going out in time from December, January, February, March, February, March, April, into the summer, into late summer. And you can see that the temperature above normal now is expected to cool off and start to transition to colder than normal by the time we get to late summer, I guess is what you would call it here. Now, that was a run in November. They rerun this every month. Let's take a look at the run in mid-December. And it looks different. It looks like a quicker cool off. And now we're into the La Nina range, colder than normal temperatures as you get into June, July, and August. So definitely something we're going to want to watch. Now, why is it important? Here is what happens during La Ninas. Okay, we're looking at precipitation. Over here, we're looking at how far the precipitation is above or below normal during La Ninas. And over here, we're looking at how often there's a correlation. So in other words, well, let's start off in March, April, May. Okay, look at what happens out in the western Corn Belt. About 90 millimeters below normal for that 3-month period, which is about, I think I figured it out, it's somewhere around 5 to 7 inches below normal, somewhere in there. Okay, and when that happens, here's a correlation. It happens about 80 or 90% of the time. So if there's a La Nina in March, April, May period, 80% of the time, Iowa, Missouri, Kansas, and Nebraska are drier than normal. Okay, we won't be into La Nina probably at that time period, but let's go through. Okay, April, May, June. Again, you see more brown in the Corn Belt than you do see green. And if you like to look at Michigan, it shows it's as slightly drier than normal in April, May, and June. May, June, July. Look at that. The signal's still showing up. Parts of the Corn Belt much drier than normal. In Michigan, starting to dry out as well. June, July, August. Dryness out in the western Corn Belt and down to the south. July, August, September. Drier than normal in the Corn Belt. August, September, October, the dryness starting to head toward Michigan. September, October, November, the dryness in Michigan. So what that says to me is that if we do see the La Nina develop, we may not be influenced by it and dry out until we get to August or maybe September, maybe October. So here's the conclusion. El Nino continuing for the rest of the winter tends to bring us warmer than normal conditions the rest of the winter, tends to bring us drier than normal conditions. I think that's probably going to be the case, but not extremely dry. You're probably not looking at a ton of snow on the ground. You're probably not looking at a lot of frost in the ground come March 15th. So you're probably going to be getting started early. You're probably going to be rolling in the early part of April, it looks like to me, unless we get into a ill-timed wet pattern. That's hard to predict this far out. Then as we go into the summer, we will see the El Nino change to La Nina, warmer and drier conditions developing for the Corn Belt. And we could have still decent moisture June, July, maybe leaning toward drier than normal. And the difference this year would be, the last couple of years you probably said, oh gee, I hope it doesn't rain again. And this year probably will be the transition year where you say, we could use a rain right now. Maybe not dry enough to impact the yields dramatically, and you might still have a home run on yields here in Michigan this year, and let's hope for that. And then as we get into August, September, and October, we will probably trend warmer than normal, maybe hotter than normal, and also drier than normal. So that will have an impact maybe on the later season crops, maybe the development of tonnage in sugar beets, maybe it will influence the soybean yield some, and certainly it could mean a long, extended season with plenty of heat units and maybe a drier than normal harvest season. So some good and bad, I guess, in that part. All in all, I still think we're looking at a pretty good season for us here in Michigan this year, while the western part of the Corn Belt may not do as well, and maybe that's what you want to hear right now. All right, well, I am headed to Florida. I will have a glass of orange juice for everybody, and I'll have a beer for everybody too. How does that sound? Sorry I couldn't make it to see you face to face. We'll give this a shot, and this is the first time I've ever done this, so hopefully it worked out okay for you. Hopefully you got some good information, and if you ever have any questions, just make sure you give me a buzz or email me, find me on Facebook. You stop by the house. You know where I live, and I'll try to answer your questions. All right? Take care. Have a great season, everyone.